Hello and welcome to Science Research Weekly, Season 5, Episode 4, and the crowd goes wild for chitons. Get ready for genes before the last common ancestor, a new cold Earth, herbivorous microsaurs, lava tubes on Venus, a publicly named chiton species, paleontology R packages, and the Protean grant from DARPA. This episode covers materials from February 6th to the 12th. Let's get started with some research articles. First up is universal paralogs provide a window into evolution before the last universal common ancestor. So these researchers were again looking at a universal paralog protein family. So looking at gene duplication events predating the last universal common ancestor between bacteria, archaea, eukaryotes, etc. So really interesting. I'm hoping to dig more into this week. Another interesting article you might think is of worth to look over is a cold Earth-sized planet candidate transitioning a 10th magnitude K-dwarf from K2. So looking at Earth-like exoplanets, this is a potential one. So yeah, cold Earth type planet. Okay, shimmying along here, we have a closer planet, Mars. With this article, does the measured abundance suggest a biological origin for the ancient alkanes preserved in a Martian mudstone? So there's been organic molecules, or presumably organic molecules found on Mars, and now they found long chain alkanes. Now, which, while I believe can be produced by things like meteorite impacts, the abundance suggests that at some point a biological process produced them. So, more potential evidence of life existing on Mars, at least in the far past. All right, speaking about life on our own past planet, we have this article, Carboniferous recumbirostran elucidates the origins of terrestrial herbivory. So most of the first animals on land were predators. Well, all of them were predators, but eventually herbivory developed. And they look at this late Carboniferous pantolid microsaur, Tyrannorota herbati, which looks like it actually had the teeth to be, I believe, exclusively a herbivore. And just if you're not clear what a microsaur is, which I wasn't, I looked that up. That looks like something like Pantylus. These are the Lepospondyle. So these are amphibians. There's different microsaurs. There's longer ones, but then the pantylid ones look like Pantylus. So they're pretty stout little lizard-like or lizard-looking amphibians. And they looks like they were some herbivores. All right. Shifting to the deep ocean, we have the ocean species discoveries 28 through 30, new species of chitons, Mollusca, Polyplacophora, and a public naming competition. So this is really fascinating. I saw this come up on YouTube from Z Frank's channel, True Facts About Animals. He had a naming competition, and in fact, yeah, one of these chitons were named from that competition. It is Ralali populi. It's from deep sunken wood off of Japan. So really fascinating. You actually can see the type specimen here if you're looking at the video. And actually you can go and see a 3D model of what the chiton's shell looks like. So pretty fascinating sort of intersection of science and sort of popular science. All right, closing out our typical articles, we have radar-based observation of a lava tube on Venus. So lava tubes have been postulated on Venus, but they haven't been detected yet. And until now, they using The Magellan spacecraft looks like radar. We're able to map the surface and found a skylight, so which would be part of like a collapsed lava tube. So it looks like that's lava tubes have been confirmed observationally. All right, with that, let's switch to some of our preprints. Start with two articles from Archive. First one is formalization and inevitability of the Pareto principle. So the Pareto principle, sometimes known as the Matthew principle, it's like the 20-80 rule, like 20% of something, or 20% of like people do 80% of the work, or etc. The sort of the distribution is sort of uneven in that way. And so going into a lot more of the math of how that actually comes out about, I believe. Next article, more on the physics side of things, light to heavy, brief to eternal, an axiom for every occasion in the early universe. Looks at discussing classes of axon. Those are hypothetical particles, different distributions, and going from, again, light to dark, heavy to eternal, or short-lived to eternal, and trying to get to the most useful picture in here. I guess I must have missed it. Yeah, just different scenarios about how it might form. They might form in their early universe. All right, switching over to bioarchive. There's the preprint reading tea leaves for de novo protein design. Really working at actually using Monte Carlo sampling in protein design and finding ways to get around the typically long simulation times to generate sequence that satisfy sort of in silico designability criteria. Another article, a toolkit for programmable transcriptional engineering across eukaryotic kingdoms, focusing on chromatin and chromatin regulator proteins. Yeah, so looking, at using those and having that available across different species for advancing synthetic eukaryotic engineering. And then the final bioarchive is temporal dynamics of microbiome communities within urban compost piles undergoing the heat process. So again, looked at shifts of the microbiome in compost, urban compost. One of the things I think they found was that while there was suggestions of microbial resistant genes and foodborne associated genera, like I think a genera, for more like disease. That was early in the cycle. Once you get to the thermophilic phase, a lot of those drop. So as long as you're having hot composting, I believe that kind of helps reduce the possibility of disease issues. All right, we'll switch to some research tools here. A couple our bloggers post. There is from One World Projects, Maps and Coding Our Project, called Introducing Geoboundaries, ways to work with spatial data in R, and this GeoBounds version to make that easier. Then there is Paleontology R packages to benefit from Software Sustainability Institute grant by R Open Sci. So Paleoverse, that's an initiative among the paleontology community for resources and toolkits in R. Got grant money to help develop that out, the Paleoverse R package, and the packages within that ecosystem. Speaking of R ecosystems, some new CRAN packages that might be of interest. There's Mixed Power, simulation-based power analysis for mixed effects models. There's Aesop R, tools for text analysis of Aesop's fables. OHVBD, One Health VBD Hub. I think that's VBD is vector-borne disease. And then Stat User, statistical tools designed for end users. With that, let's close out our time with a couple grant opportunities from grants.gov. The first one from NIH, Advancing Bioinformatics, Translational Bioinformatics, and Computational Biology Research. These are R01, clinical trials optional. It's from the National Library of Medicine within NIH, and to support creation and implementation of cutting-edge methods, tools, and approaches in bioinformatics. And the second grant is called Protean from DARPA, the Biological Technologies Office. Very intriguing. Solicitation for a research thrust that they call Protean that will focus on identifying novel ways to restore protein function to targets of chemical threat agents. So definitely application based. With that, thanks for joining me for Science Research Weekly. Science on.